You've spent a lifetime caring for everyone else. But when was the last time you cared for you? Turning 60 doesn't happen overnight. It creeps in slowly, through the tired face you see in the mirror each morning, the little ache in your knees as you climb the stairs, or the quiet in the afternoons that used to be filled with noise and laughter. You're no longer the young girl chasing big dreams, or the busy mom juggling it all. Now that the kids are grown and work has slowed, or maybe stopped completely, you're left with something we rarely talk about: space. And the question is, what will you do with it? I remember walking in on my mother one afternoon. She was just sitting by the window, holding an old photo album. She wasn't crying. She wasn't smiling, just staring. I asked what she was thinking about. She looked up and softly said, "I'm remembering someone I used to be." That moment stuck with me, because I realized it wasn't just her story. It's the story of so many women around this age. You've given, you've sacrificed. You've carried families, jobs, friendships on your back. But in the middle of all those roles, did the woman called you get lost somewhere along the way? This video isn't here to tell you what you did wrong. It's here to invite you to let go of what no longer serves you, not to lose yourself, but to find yourself again. And if you stay with me till the end, maybe, just maybe, tomorrow will feel a little different. Part 1. Don't let saving every penny steal the moments that matter. You spent your whole life saving to feel secure. But if you're too afraid to spend a little in life, is that really living? I remember one of my mom's old friends. Her name was Linda, a true American woman and a former accountant. She was careful with every penny, always hunting for discounts, always carried a stack of coupons in her purse, and never once stepped on a plane because she thought it was just a waste of money. When her husband passed away at 67 from a sudden stroke, Linda had over $1 million in savings. But you know what else she had? A list of things she never got to do. "I'll go to Paris next year," she used to say. "I'll visit the grandkids in Florida when I feel more settled." After the funeral, she sat down with my mom for tea. And then, with tears in her eyes, she said something I'll never forget. "I spent my whole life getting ready to live, but I never really lived." That hit me hard, because how many of us, especially women who have spent a lifetime caring for others, carry that same fear? What if I get sick? What if the money runs out? Shouldn't I just leave it all for the kids? Those are fair questions, but when they stop you from enjoying life, even just a little, they start holding you back more than they help. Look, I'm not saying spend wildly or throw away your hard-earned money, but there's a big difference between being responsible and living in fear. I once asked my mom, "Do you have any regrets?" She paused and said softly, "I regret saying no to that trip with my best friend, just because I thought it wasn't necessary." She's gone now. See, money isn't just for bills and emergencies. It's for joy, for memories, for those little moments that make life feel real again. So if you've done your part, paid off the house, handled the bills, tucked a little away for a rainy day, then maybe it's time to also say yes. Yes to a nice dinner. Yes to a weekend getaway. Yes to a gift just for you, because saving your whole life shouldn't mean dying with numbers left untouched in a bank account. Ask yourself today, what's worth spending on while I'm still well enough to enjoy it? Sometimes, the best thing you can spend money on is a memory you'll carry forever. Part 2. Don't shop to fill the silence in your heart. What you're searching for isn't sitting in your shopping cart. It's waiting quietly in a heart that needs to be heard. I remember going grocery shopping with one of my older cousins. She's in her early 60s, retired, and has been living alone since her husband passed. Every time we went to the store, her cart would fill up with all sorts of little pretty things. A cream-colored silk scarf, a blender on sale, a few lipsticks she never even opened. I asked her once, "Do you really need all this?" She just smiled and said, "Not sure, but it makes me feel a little lighter inside." That answer stuck with me, not because she was being careless with money, but because it hit me just how many women in their 60s do the same. They're not shopping out of need. They're shopping to fill a quiet space no one else sees. When we're younger, we shop because we need things. As we get older, it becomes a habit. But somewhere along the way, it turns into something else. We start buying to soothe what's missing: companionship, affection, or just a small reminder that we're still here, still making choices. And in those moments, shopping feels like comfort. But then you get home, tuck those new things into an already full closet, and realize the emptiness is still there. Just as quiet, just as heavy. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't buy what brings you joy. But maybe, just maybe, before you swipe that card next time, pause and ask yourself, do I truly want this, or am I trying to fill an emotional gap? My cousin, after years of buying things she never used, once told me the best money she ever spent wasn't during a Black Friday sale. It was on a last-minute bus ticket to go visit her mother for her birthday. A simple meal, a table full of laughter, her mom's eyes glowing with joy, that's what stayed with her. Years later, she still talks about that day. You see, true joy doesn't come from price tags. It comes from connection, from people, memories, and the parts of life that make you feel alive. So the next time you feel that itch to shop, ask yourself, with this same money, could I create a memory? Maybe a warm coffee date with an old friend. Maybe that art class you've always dreamed of. Or just a slow, thoughtful dinner cooked just for you, with music playing and no rush. Because years from now, you probably won't remember the scarf you bought, but you will remember the sound of shared laughter at that little cafe. Part 3. Don't trade your time for things that no longer matter. You can always make more money. But none of us can earn back lost time. A lot of women in their 60s keep working, not because they're still chasing a dream, but because they don't quite know who they are without the busyness. They've spent years juggling schedules, answering to deadlines, being the rock everyone leaned on. Then one day, the alarm clock stops going off at 6 a.m., no one's asking for reports or appointments, and suddenly, there's a quiet they don't know how to fill. I once spoke with a woman named Margaret. She was 62 and had worked as an office secretary for over 30 years. I asked her why she hadn't retired yet. She gave a tired sigh and said, I don't know. I guess I'm scared that if I stop working, I won't be useful anymore. That broke my heart a little. Not because Margaret isn't capable, she absolutely is, but because somewhere along the way, she started tying her worth to her productivity. As if not earning a paycheck meant she didn't matter anymore. But here's the truth. By the time you reach your 60s, your time becomes the most precious thing you own. Every day is a page that won't come back. And the question is, how much can I earn? What am I giving my time to? I also knew a retired doctor in his mid-60s. Everyone kept asking why he didn't keep practicing. He was still sharp, still respected. He simply smiled and said, I've spent my life helping people survive. Now I want to learn how to live for myself. That stuck with me. Because for many people, the hardest part about slowing down isn't the financial shift, it's the identity shift. Who are you if you're not the caretaker, the worker, the doer? But here's the thing, you don't have anything left to prove. You've raised families, you've held jobs, you've carried your share of the load. Now you get to choose meaning over momentum. And if work still brings you joy, connection, and purpose, then by all means, keep going. But if it's just habit, or a reason to delay the life you really want, maybe it's time to step back. So let me ask you. If you had one full week with no job, no obligations, what would you do? Who would you visit? What's something that makes you smile just thinking about it? Maybe that answer is exactly where your time belongs now. Part 4. Don't keep postponing what makes you feel. How many times have you said, maybe tomorrow? When things settle down. Next year for sure. Even in our 60s, those phrases still roll off the tongue like old habits. But here's the truth. Next year isn't as far or as guaranteed as it used to be. I remember a couple who lived in our old neighborhood. Sweet folks. They had a dream, to travel across the U.S. in an RV. They planned it for nearly 10 years, mapped the route, talked about it every holiday. But something always came up. The kids needed help, the timing wasn't right, the van wasn't ready yet. And then one day, he had a heart attack. He survived, thankfully, but his strength never quite returned. One afternoon, I sat with his wife over tea. She looked out the window and quietly said, We waited too long. Back when we could have gone, we kept putting it off. Now, it's not so simple anymore. That sentence hit me like a quiet thunder. Because isn't that what so many of us do? We live as if there's all the time in the world. But the truth is, none of us know how many more summers we'll see. How many more chances we'll have to say, let's do it next time. So if you've always wanted to take an art class, start looking for one this week. If that solo trip keeps whispering to you, go, even if it's just 2 days away. If there's someone you've been meaning to call, don't wait for a special occasion. Today is the special occasion. You're here, you're breathing, that's enough. Here's something I've learned: you don't need permission to live fully, not from your kids, not from your friends, not even from your past self. You just need one thing: the courage to stop waiting. And the honesty to admit what your heart truly longs for, because life doesn't wait, and neither should you. Part 5. Don't treat your health like it's guaranteed. When we were younger, we could stay up late, skip meals, forget to drink water, and bounce back the next morning like nothing happened. But after 60, the body starts speaking a different language. It's quieter now, slower, but clearer than ever. That knee pain doesn't just go away overnight. One night of poor sleep leaves you drained the entire day. And a single dizzy spell in the bathroom, that's enough to make you start questioning your safety in your own home. I remember watching my mother, strong, steady, never one to complain, begin to quietly pull back from family gatherings. When I asked why, she just said, "I don't think I can stand in the kitchen all day anymore." We offered to order food instead, but she gave a half smile and said, "It's not the food. It's my back, it just can't take it." That hit me hard. She'd been silently enduring more than any of us realized, because that's what she'd always done. She didn't want to bother anyone. She was used to putting herself last. But here's the truth. If you don't take care of your health, no one else can do it for you. And without your health, even the most beautiful parts of life, love, freedom, joy, start to feel out of reach. You don't need to train for a marathon. Just start small, drink enough water, take a 15-minute walk, stretch gently in the mornings, choose a salad instead of fried food now and then, and please don't skip your regular checkups, because health isn't the goal. It's the vehicle that lets you live fully. It's how you hold your grandbaby without aching arms. It's how you walk steadily without fear. It's how you have the energy to finally do the things you've always put off. And most importantly, you deserve to feel good, not just because others rely on you, but because you deserve a body that isn't hurting, a mind that isn't heavy, a heart that still feels light. Every walk you take, every mindful meal, every hour of rest, it's not selfish. It's love. And at this age, loving yourself isn't a luxury, it's a responsibility to the life you still have ahead. So treat your body with care. Not because it's broken, but because it still carries so much beauty inside you. Part 6. Don't let other people's opinions steal your freedom. Funny thing about getting older. The longer you live, the better you know yourself. But somehow, it gets harder to truly be yourself. Why? Because you've spent decades playing roles: the gentle mother, the devoted wife, the loyal daughter, the dependable coworker, and somewhere along the way, the woman underneath all those roles got quieter, maybe even a little lost. I remember one of my mom's old friends. Her name was Diane. She was 65 and had always dreamed of learning how to paint. That dream had been sitting quietly in her heart since she was a little girl. But for over 40 years, she never picked up a paintbrush. Not once. After she retired, her daughter encouraged her to finally join an oil painting class. But Diane hesitated, not because she was afraid of learning, but because she was afraid of what the neighbors might say. Painting at her age. What's she trying to prove? Still, one day, she walked into that classroom. And months later, when I saw her again, she said something that made me tear up a little. "I've never felt more alive, even if my paintings aren't any good." That moment reminded me of something powerful. After 60, you don't need anyone's permission to live your life. You've done your part. You've shown up, given your best, held your family together. Now it's time to be honest about what you want. If you want to wear that bright floral dress, even if someone says it's too loud, wear it anyway. If you want to take a trip on your own, even if your friends call it risky, go. If you're tired of showing up to awkward family dinners just to be polite, it's okay to say no. Because when people look back on life, their biggest regret isn't usually what they did. It's what they didn't do, because they were too afraid of what others might think. Don't shrink yourself for someone else's comfort. Don't let a passing comment dim the light inside you. At this age, the greatest freedom isn't where you go, it's the courage to simply be yourself. You don't owe anyone an explanation. You don't need anyone's blessing to be happy. You just as you are, with your wrinkles, your wisdom, your quiet longings, are already more than enough. Part 7. Don't spend your days soaking in negativity. There's a quiet habit that sneaks up on a lot of us after 60. One that slowly dims the light in our days. Watching too much bad news. I remember asking my mom one morning, "What's the first thing you do when you wake up?" She answered honestly, "Turn on the news." At first, I didn't think much of it, but over time, I noticed something shift. She started worrying about everything. Wars in countries she'd never been to, storms in places she didn't know, gas prices, food shortages, new diseases. The more she watched, the more uneasy she became. One day, I gently suggested a little experiment, no news for a week. Instead, we played soft music in the morning, took walks around the park, and cooked together in the afternoons. And you know what? She laughed more. She slept better. And she stopped spiraling over things she couldn't control. Now don't get me wrong, I'm not saying you should ignore the world. But here's something most people don't realize. These days, the news isn't really about keeping you informed. It's about keeping you hooked, and the fastest way to do that is fear. Fear drains your energy. It speeds up your heart, clouds your mind, and robs you of good sleep. Even if the crisis is happening halfway across the world, your body feels it right here, every day. But here's the good news. After 60, you get to choose how you feed your spirit. You can read a gentle book instead of watching the 10 o'clock headlines. You can laugh at a silly movie, listen to old love songs, or call that friend who always makes you smile. You can step outside and let the wind remind you the world is still beautiful. Because it is. There's still kindness. There's still music. There's still art and nature and joy waiting for you, just beyond the TV screen. You don't have to carry the weight of the whole world on your shoulders. You just have to care for the little world inside your heart. So let your days be light again, not filled with fear but filled with peace. You've earned that. Part 8. Don't ignore your finances, but don't let them rule your life. When people talk about retirement, the one topic that seems to make everyone tense up is money. I once met a woman named Susan, 68 years old, retired for 3 years. No debt, savings in place. Her kids were grown and doing fine. But every morning the very first thing she did, check her investment account. And anytime the market dipped, even a little, she'd lose sleep. She turned down trips, dinners, anything fun, because she was afraid she might run out someday. On the flip side, I had a cousin who handled money very differently. She avoided it completely. "Talking about money gives me a headache," she'd say. So bills went unpaid, savings accounts sat untouched, insurance went unreviewed. And when her husband passed, everything fell into chaos. Here's the thing, both extremes are a trap. One leaves you paralyzed by fear. The other leaves you completely unprepared. At this stage of life, managing money isn't about building wealth anymore. It's about aligning your money with the life you want to live. You don't have to know every financial term, but you do need to know what you have, what you need, and what matters most in the years ahead. Find a trustworthy advisor. Make a simple, clear plan. And once you have a full picture, you'll stop being ruled by the numbers. And start making choices that are driven by your values, not your fears. Money is a tool, it's not the finish line. Use it to open doors, to create peace. To live in a way that reflects who you truly are. Not who a spreadsheet says you should be. Part 9. Don't live like you have forever. One afternoon, my mom looked at me and said, "You know, time feels different now. A whole year goes by like a week." And just like that, I felt the weight of it, not because I was afraid of her growing older, but because, for the first time, I truly felt the limits of time. When we're young, we think we have forever. Forever to love, to forgive, to start over, to travel somewhere new. But at some point, all those "I will someday" promises start to pile up like emotional debts we never quite pay off. I once asked a woman in her 70s, "If this were your last year on Earth, what would you do differently?" She didn't even pause. "I'd call my sister and make peace. I'd nag less and hug my grandkids more. I'd finally sign up for that yoga class I keep putting off." Then she smiled and added, "Maybe I should go ahead and do those things now." We don't need to fear death to start truly living. But we do need to respect life enough not to waste it. Don't throw your precious time away on things that don't deserve it. Bitterness, perfectionism, procrastination, self-blame. You don't have to do something grand to make your life meaningful. Just start. Start that thing you've always wanted to do but kept pushing off. Because today is a chance that won't come again. Call the friend you drifted from. Write the letter you've been holding in your heart. Plant those flowers. Or simply sit on the porch, close your eyes, and whisper, "I'm grateful I'm still here." You may not have as many years ahead as you once did, but you still have enough to make them count. And that, my friend, is what matters most. 60 isn't the end, it's the beginning of living lighter, deeper, and more honestly. After all the years you've spent taking care of others. Maybe what you need most right now isn't to try harder, do more, or push through. Maybe what you truly need is to let go of fear, let go of all that overthinking, let go of the things that no longer make you feel alive. You don't need to be perfect for anyone anymore. And you don't have to wait for a sign to start living fully. Because this, right here, right now, can be the start. You get to choose a life that's simpler, softer, more honest, more you. In the end, what matters isn't how much you accomplished. It's whether you still feel like yourself in the life you've built. And if your honest answer is, "I'm not sure," then maybe, just maybe, today is the perfect day to begin again. On your own terms, in your own time, in the way only you can.